In a country where divorce is the commonality, what would you say the secret to a successful marriage is?
I don't care how crazy she is in the sack or whatever. You do not want to marry an unhappy, crazy person, like at all. I mean, this is obvious.
You've been with your wife 40 years.
Yep.
I think you said you've been married for 33 years.
Yes.
In a country where divorce is the commonality, what would you say the secret to a successful marriage is?
I mean, luck, destiny, providence plays a huge role. You know, you're not the author of your success or entirely of your failures, I would say. Also, there's a lot that happens in life that is not the product of choices that you made. Free will is overrated. I'm becoming more Calvinist by the day. Just watch it. You know, does the 5-year-old get leukemia because she did something wrong? Like, no. A lot of things, you spent a lot of your life in war. People you know who died, did they deserve? You know what I mean? It's like things happen that are not, for good and bad, that are not sort of up to you. And so a lot of having a happy marriage is just marrying someone with whom you're compatible and you change. I met my wife in 1984 and it's a completely different country and we're different people, but we're different in the same way. Who's responsible? You know, who did that? Oh, I didn't really. I hear people say, "Oh, marriages are hard." I've never had a hard time in marriage. I've always enjoyed it. There are hard times. You got a lot of little kids. You've got little kids. It's like pretty hard. But I've always been happy to be married to her, and more happy as the years go by. But to the extent that you can control these things, like pick the right person, do not marry a stripper. They're all crazy. I'm sure some are nice. I've known some who are nice. I'm serious, but they're damaged. Try to marry a girl who likes her dad. I think that's important. Or who did like her dad when she was little.
Why do you think that's important? I've never heard anybody say that.
Because I've noticed it. I've noticed it a lot. And up close. I mean, I'm not guessing. Like, I could be completely wrong. This is just an observation of mine. But girls who like their dads or who like everyone's disappointed by his dad or her dad in later life. Like, you learn that your dad's human and holy shit, I can't believe he's human. I thought he was God. So that's natural. But, when you're 8, if you're deeply disappointed in your dad, especially as a girl, that leaves a mark. And I've known women who had terrible relationships with their fathers who are wonderful people and well-balanced people, but it's harder for sure. And if a girl has a completely contentious relationship with her father and has been betrayed by him, the family abandoned by him, that can really have an effect. Whereas a woman who, grew up really loving her dad and feeling secure in his leadership as a dad and his love as a dad, that girl is more secure and less jumpy, and she's not, thinking that every argument's going to lead to divorce. The thing about damage in childhood is it's hard to sort of let go of those patterns. And products of divorce, like me, for example, it takes a while to realize that, you have a disagreement, that's okay. It's not the end of the world. You're not going to get divorced, So I think that's important. Second, just resolve not to get divorced. I do think that's important. I'm not a particularly virtuous person at all, actually, but I did, when I got married, I had lived through a divorce as a child. I was like, I'm not doing that. Period. My wife came from a stable family and she was like, divorce? What? It was not even a thing. But I resolved, I'm not doing that. And so that, I think, is helpful to decide, here are the boundaries, whatever we're doing, we're not splitting up. But I would say the main thing is spending time with your wife when your kids are little, which is really hard. It's so hard. And you love your kids, and so it's very tempting, or it's natural, actually, to divert your attention from your spouse to your children, because they're your children, and that's natural, and you should do that. But it's also very easy, indeed, it's the natural course to ignore your spouse in favor of your children, because children are instantly affirming. Your spouse is complicated. You can be with a woman for, as I have, 40 years and still only get 65% comprehension of what she's saying, because she's a woman, so you can't really understand. You know what I mean?
I do.
Which is, of course, the beauty of it. That's why it's interesting and fresh and a challenge and cool, and you learn a lot. And if she was just like you would learn nothing. It's just narcissism. It's masturbation. But because she's so different from you, it's what? It forces you out of yourself to figure it out. But the temptation for men is to be okay, I have a choice of hanging out with my 5-year-old. It's Dad, you're so great. And my wife, who's kind of pissed at me for reasons I don't really understand, she's just crazy. So I'm going to just go out for the kids, because that's the sugar high. That's plus they're my kids. Yeah. So I can justify it. If you keep doing that, you will destroy your marriage. And it's so vital for men to force themselves to work through the crazy. Your wife is not, well, she's kind of crazy, of course, but she's not deeply crazy, actually. She's probably wise. And to force yourself to get over that hump, which is the first 10 minutes, you're like, I can't, what the are you saying? Leave me alone, you're crazy. To get past that and realize, no, actually, she's trying to tell me something that's really important, and be humble enough to hear it and assess it rationally. And that's a process. It's painful at first. And I have found the two practical techniques that work are long walks, because you're not facing each other. So if there's a dispute, you don't have to look into each other's eyes. It's too intense. It's like big cats can't stare at each other without eating each other. I've never had a problem in my marriage that I couldn't walk off. And then the higher level of that is the day-long in bed summit meeting for like big issues. So if you have like not a minor, but like a long-standing issue, a family problem, for example, like what do we do about that? That's very complicated. I don't know what to do. And I think we kind of disagree, and I'm pissed at you about it. And it sort of simmers. That's when you check into a hotel for a weekend and you get room service, you get butt naked and you sit in bed and you talk about it. Indirectly, in the way you do on a sensitive subject. You don't dive right in, but you get comfortable and you stay there until it's solved. And
I've never heard that one either. That's great advice.
In our family, we call these summit meetings. We have a couple famous ones that have solved like big problems. I mean, we don't have big problems. We never had big problems. But like, there are things where you have a difference of opinion and you don't want to fight, so you don't fully articulate it, but you're just like, it's always the same. She's crazy. He's an asshole. She's crazy. He's an asshole. It's like, it's like those are the defaults, right? And so but you realize that she's not crazy, and you're probably slightly less of an asshole than she assumed you were, and you just need to talk it through. And it takes time, and it also takes some balls to face female dissatisfaction. Like, I don't care the bravest man, I don't care how many terrorist doors you've breached. Facing off against a pissed off wife is the scariest thing you'll ever do. It's scarier than jumping out of an airplane. No man wants to do it. That's why they golf. And to make yourself do that is really hard. That's called leadership, actually. That is male leadership. And it's so worth it. It's so worth it, but you never want to do it. The man's impulse is to run away. I don't care how honorable you think you are.
Yeah.
You're not going to like abandon her, go get a pack of cigarettes and not come back. Okay, though that happens. But you're going to abandon her in subtle, easy to justify ways, mostly by hanging with your kids. Why would you want to deal with her? You know what I mean? She's mad at you. And the last thing I'll say is, if you want to have happy children, have a happy marriage. That is the most important thing you can do for your children. If it's a choice between going to Dylan's soccer game and taking your wife to dinner, take your wife to dinner. Your kids will benefit from that much more than anything you could do for them, any game you could go to, any bedtime story you could read to them. Focus, make your wife happy, and your children will be happy and secure. What they want is security, predictability, knowing that at the center of the family is an immovable rock called this marriage, this love between man and wife. And you will find that is, you want kids who like each other, which is the measure of happy kids. They like each other. And you want kids who are like calm and reasonable and happy and not addicted to drugs. Have a happy marriage. And I think it's that simple. I think it's that simple.
Man, that's great advice. Thank you.
It's worked for me.
You know how many people that's probably going to help? That's amazing.
Well, it's pretty simple, but don't run away. They all want to run away. I felt that so many times. I can't deal with this. I'm out of here. I've got important things to do.
I love the marry a girl that loves her dad. That is something I've never heard of. And
well, I had a really close friend. I don't want to reveal too much. It's like someone really close to me who married like a truly crazy woman. It's a relative of mine, like actually crazy. It's like flamboyant. Like it's not a close call. This is like a crazy, malicious, narcissist drug addict, like actual. And this is a very smart person. And I said to him once, like, we were on a hunting trip. We're sitting in a duck blind, actually. And I said, I don't want to hurt your feelings, or this is all kind of personal and it's too close and all this. But like, why'd you do that? She's like completely bonkers and bad. And he said to me, there are upsides. That's literally what he said. There are upsides. And she hated her dad, She hated her dad, but there were upsides, if you know what I mean. And for the purposes of like a weekend, men are really easily controlled. It's totally true. They're very easily controlled. They're such simple organisms. And so, yeah, but if it's a choice between, like a hot weekend in Reno or a lifetime of happiness, like you can lead them through predictability, reliability, good leadership, providing, protecting, doing the things that men are on this earth to do. You can lead them to a pretty awesome sex life, just to be blunt. But it is not worth, I don't care how crazy she is in the sack or whatever, you do not want to marry an unhappy, crazy person, at all. I mean, this is obvious, but the consequences of that are I'd rather have cancer,
Yeah. No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.